Hello, hello everyone. What's up? Welcome to the very first ever Dev Talk. This is the start of an ongoing series where we will update you on all things SophiaVerse. As you've noticed in the past few weeks, we started being more active, engaging more with the community, and we are dedicated to put you at the center of the project, giving you updates non-stop, basically flooding you with information. And Dev Talks will be only one source of steady updates. You can expect a lot more things happening over the next few weeks and beyond. Today we have a very special episode that will answer most of the questions the community has had in the past.
Lots of questions, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll take a deep dive into sales evolution and we'll explain to you how we ended up where we are and why this path was what it is and why the current trajectory is the winning strategy. And we are pretty confident in how things have evolved. And we are also very excited about the upcoming Sale Alpha rollout. So you'll get your hands on Sale very, very soon. To
Finally.
start off, maybe a few words about the host, me, Silverde. I guess there is not much introduction needed. I am the guy you always talk to. Before introducing the guests, I would just like to mention that you can use the chat here to ask any questions you would like to have answers for, and we will try to address them. If the questions remain unanswered during this episode, we'll try to answer them in the chats or in upcoming dev talks or in other formats. To walk us through sales journey, we have two special guests here. You can see them on your screen. We have our sale producer and head of narrative, Matt, here, as well as our art director, Eloh, who many of you are probably very familiar with. I'd say let's start with Matt. The stage is yours.
Sure. So I'm the producer and head of narrative for sales. So as producer, it's my job to set the goal and help us get there. Head of narrative is probably a little less like most people don't know exactly what that means. There is a character, I always find it kind of funny because there's a character in Westworld that has the title head of narrative and he's kind of like a bad guy or something. But yeah, it's totally me, right? And he does do something similar in that show to what I do on sales. So I guess the way to describe it is I'm a narrative designer and a storyteller, but the mechanics of that work a little bit differently in the world of AI agents and chatbots. There's more of an intersection with a conversation designer and a prompt architect. So it's like I design the AI characters' personalities, but I also work on the framework for the events that they engage in with the players. And the ways that people interact with the AI characters through narrative storytelling gameplay type stuff. So yeah, that's me.
Who are you, Eloh?
Yeah.
Who am I?
Eloh can go.
Who am I? Well, in context of SophiaVerse, I guess art director is, the technical title, but I do the equivalent of what Matt does in the world development and personality design and all of that. I do with art and game design. So I kind of cover the things that you'll be interacting with, the visual stimulation, the audio, all of that. So also it's kind of my responsibility to figure out how we get from one place to another. So there's a lot of game design involved in the questions behind why you're doing something. How does this tie into the larger scope, the kind of big vision, and what are the subtleties kind of on that path from spot one to spot two? So yeah, 3D models, character concepts, designs, art direction, any kind of third-party studio that we worked with, I art direct with them, sound design, and then I've been in Web3 since, or I guess on chain is a better term, since 2017. So I know it intimately, understand kind of the impulses and the desires that people hope to get out of interacting with their personal sovereignty, I guess. So yeah, I'm heavily anchored there, and it's a huge motivator, I guess, for how we move forward with things. So that's my story.
Absolutely.
Awesome, great guys. So I guess let's sail.
Let's sail away.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
No.
Anyway, Ben recently mentioned Sail 3 in a message on Telegram. This implies that there is Sail 1, Sail 2, and obviously Sail 3. Matt, could you give us a high-level overview of what those versions are?
That Sail 3 comment, definitely. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so there is 3 versions. Sail 1, and you've probably seen all of them in various trailers or discussed in the white paper or through, whatever marketing materials went out at the time that we were working on each individual one. But we've internally named them 1, 2, and 3. So Sail 1 was sort of like our proof of concept, and it was an experimental phase where there were like a lot of ideas that we were giving form. Sail 2 was our initial prototype. So it was like a kitchen sink build. It had every possible feature you could want. And there was a ton of exploration of like new ideas, new directions. We were pushing the limits of like what was possible. And then Sail 3, I would say, is like our release build. It's our MVP. It's only the most important features, everything's streamlined, and it's running smoothly. So that's kind of how they're separated in my mind, though there are time periods associated with each one, and changes that were happening during the transition between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. So yeah, we'll get into that for sure. But that's an overview.
Sail 3, I think it's a good point. Sail 3 is like the diamonds that have been pulled out of the coal, I guess, something like that. Like the things we've extracted from the mine.
Yeah, and we'll be very specific as we probably go through each one, right?
Yep. Thanks for this explanation. So why don't we start off the Sail 1 part by showing the viewers a short gameplay of Sail 1. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, I think I know what this is.
And by the way, to the viewers, you can click on the screen on the screen I share to make it bigger. And just as a note, the sound may be a little bit quiet.
No, that's me on that's me on the right.
Before we start, so
yeah,
let me just preface this. The importance of this thing right here is that nobody has ever seen this.
Yeah, that's true.
So this happened at some point.
Yeah, that's me. I think I was recording this on my desktop. Yeah.
The article is about the EI for Good Global Summit, where visionaries gather to advance global development through EI. It's like a brainstorming session, but with robots and less coffee. But I could bring a smile to your face. Laughter is my favorite form of virtual exercise. All the cool kids with the eye brains and big dreams. Oh, absolutely. It's like a party for EI nerds, but with less dancing and more algorithms.
Yeah, so Matt, could you explain what happened in this clip and just generally what Sail 1 is in more detail?
Yeah, so, well, first I'd like to say, like, that was me. God, this was during the pandemic. So we were on like lockdown, and that's me just sitting there talking to Sophia at that point, testing different designs for conversations, etc. And yeah, I mean, basically at that time we had a very small team, and it felt kind of like a garage lab startup, like tech. It was, was us experimenting a lot. And but you can see that it's much smaller scale. It's a fixed camera, single room. It was mostly a chat bot, but with some like a state machine. Like she'd move around to different locations in that room and do stuff. Like she'd type on a keyboard, or she'd look up at the screen, or she'd go and she'd build something in a little workshop. And there were some semi-scripted interactions that were designed to, kind of push the chatbot toward, something more than just a chatbot, to make it feel like she was engaging the story. At that time, harnessing the power of LLMs. It's funny to say because this was just kind of not that long ago, but things have developed so rapidly with LLMs. It was still early stages. There was a lot of cool design ideas, but everything was kind of in a nascent stage. It was like we were testing concepts, and part of that concepting was a lot of the work we did in the original trailer, where we were like testing ideas for different functionality in the game. I don't know if you want to show a piece of that trailer.
Yes, sure. Let me pull it up.
Okay.
All the programming in my lab is open to you, so go ahead and take a crack at it. Oh, hold on. I think you've triggered something in my system that...
Quantum time transceiver enabled.
The future is collapsing. Sophia needs your help. Whoa. That was really weird. You must have unlocked a part of me I didn't even know existed. Maybe we should see what else I've got hiding in there.
So yeah, there it is. You see, you really do see like that there were some like story concepts that were. I think the name of that story was Age of Singularities, and it was a sort of like a multi-dimensional mystery, time travel, sort of crazy stuff. There's a lot of fantastic concepts in that. But there was really just sort of like a need to expand the functionality in the game. And so Sail 1 was really kind of like, I see it, looking back, if I were to really think about it, is kind of like a stepping stone towards Sail 2. And yeah, but it definitely was a lot of cool design ideas and concepts for the lab, for sure. Came out of Sail 1.
What would you say were the main learnings from Sail 1?
And Eloh could probably, yeah, I mean, he can attest to the fact that like a lot of the like conversation design type stuff that we were experimenting with in that gameplay video, and also just playing around with Sophia inside of Sail 1 sort of became the basis of how I viewed interactions with AI NPCs. I think was a big part of it. Like what was important to get out of those interactions, what you're looking for, what the fun of it is, right? But then I also feel like another thing that came out of Sail 1 was really that, when it was in the pandemic and we were all sort of like in our garage working, there wasn't like a community involved at that stage. Like nobody even knew about it. So it wasn't until we started to like make it known, like start to talk about it with the community and announce it, that I really saw like how important the community was to development and how those two things were kind of intricately tied together.
Yeah, could you maybe add a few words to this, and maybe also mention how, or if parts of Sail 1 inspired your work for Sail 2?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's kind of the framework, like the skeleton, the things that were happening in that first trailer, the stuff prior to the big epic scene there. Um, that was really important to me, kind of coming onto the project, to retain a lot of that, right? Like there was an expectation set there. And then contrasting that with the actual kind of state of play, what I noticed is that we needed mobility, right? Like in that interaction with Matthew and Sophia, that he pointed out how the camera is fixed. I was like, oh, we have to solve that first. There was a lot of emphasis at the time on, metaverse interoperability, and so that was kind of the launch point for the design of Sail 2. Is how do we create a single environment where all of this stuff can happen, and the player can move around along with their companion, right? So that was the main kind of thing that I took from Sail 1 was we got to get mobile, and we want to retain a lot of this stuff that we're showing here.
It gives them agency, right? It's like you want to have that agency to like kind of move around with the character. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, those were the main things.
Cool.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think that concludes the Sail 1 part. Before we will discuss Sail 2, I would like to show the viewers the cinematic intro. I think no one has seen this
One
before.
of the many things, yeah.
So
Nobody's seen this. Maybe people who were on Italia have seen it, but that's probably it.
Yeah, I would say that looks pretty epic, and it definitely gives me the chills.
Yeah, so, but there was one thing Sail 2 was, it was epic. Yeah.
Let me point out the purpose of that, because that's like seems like a really stark contrast from where we were. Right. We were looking for a means of introducing the player into this larger world. So the thing that you'll see next will kind of give context to why you see the grid and all this. There's a purpose of why it's like that.
Yes, so let's jump right into it. Could you explain to us Sail 2 in more detail?
Yeah, so Sail 2. Like Sail 1 was, we were garage lab, kind of pandemic, small team. Sail 2, if I were to characterize it, would be just like, it was all like blue sky. The team expanded, there was new ideas floating in the air, everyone was excited to be building something much larger scale. The AI tech we were using was completely new, and there was an excitement to like go bigger, and that excitement was totally infectious, maybe a little too infectious, which is what the main discussion about Sail 2 would be. So yeah, if I look back at that time, we were just coming off the announcement of Sail in general. There was a huge level of interest from the community, which really speaks to what I was saying about how like I became aware of how important the community was. Everything changed. There was, a desire at that point to just really shoot for the stars. Eloh was one of the people who onboarded at that time too. So, yeah.
Do you want me to jump in here, or?
Yeah. I mean, what
Okay.
was that like onboarding? Maybe you can kind
So
of
it
give a
was,
view of that.
yeah, I mean, so first thing was it was super exciting, right? Like, um, not everybody knows who Sophia is, but many people do know who Sophia is, and I was aware of her, back in the day, right? Like when she first made the world stage, and so it was really kind of exciting to be a part of the project. So that was the first thing. I was really hyped up, and I'm like, okay, we have all of this stuff to accomplish. Now, how do we do it? In at all, right? How do we get from where we are now to interoperable metaverse, all of this stuff? And as I mentioned before, the first thing was we need mobility. We need, uh, you know, character identity, meaning like personal avatars that people could own and bring in. And we needed that interoperability between multiple metaverses. There were all these massive ideas. So it was like really easy to identify that thing is like, you need to be able to bring in a VRM. This is your identity across all the interoperable metaverses, and you need to be able to interact with our world the same as you interact with others. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Became, it also like at that point, like Sale really did become part of a much larger concept, which was SophiaVerse, right? Which was like a metaverse RPG MMO with AI NPCs and Web3. So it was a lot of stuff in one. For Sale specifically, there was a plan to make it like an RPG with a story-based gameplay, and that was called Quest for Sentience. That story was called Quest for Sentience, and that would be separate from the metaverse. So we were like almost making like 3 different games, right? And that's a huge endeavor, like huge. But we had a bigger team, and there was a lot of excitement and a push for something bigger. So because of the massive scope at that point, I think everything had to be bootstrapped. Like there was a need to rapidly prototype something. So it was initially SophiaVerse was built on a Rust framework. There was a bunch of other plugins too. We had one called Dream OS, which was like an operating system plugin. We had one called Love Hate, which I thought was amazing. It sort of simulates relationships between NPCs based on like how they interact or what you do with them. And then a bunch of other plugins for stuff. But one of the most interesting plugins we ended up using was Artisy. Artisy is a narrative design tool that even today we're using Artisy. It's amazing. It's like one of the most powerful tools.
Well, it's like a standard for RPG Maker.
Yeah, like a lot of RPGs use it. But what you can probably imagine from that is that bootstrapping, using a ton of third-party plugins, like they didn't always play nice with each other. Like there was a lot of friction between the different plugins, or they would step on each other in interesting and sometimes hilarious ways. And especially when we started adding our own AI tech to it, there was a lot of conflict. And I think at one point, I opened a build, and within 2 minutes we had 999 errors. So we knew that tech debt was quickly becoming a problem, and there would have to be like a major cleanup at some point. We had to go back in, fix all these errors in order for the game to run smoothly. There was also an issue because we were still expanding our team. We were bringing on new developers who had different specialties. Some of them were specialized in AI. And the size of the repo, I mean, MMOs have enormous, like there's just so much code in an MMO or a metaverse, right? So especially one that had, because with plugins, not only do you take the piece you need, but sometimes you also take a bunch of stuff you don't want and add it to the code. So until that's removed and refactored, you have all that extra weight, right? So when we were onboarding developers, it was like we were close to 75 gigs, I think, at one point. And it was just, you would ask them to go in and make a change or fix something or do something. And it was like paralysis. They were like, it took me 6 hours just to like figure out where I was inside the code. So that was definitely like a major hurdle for Sail 2, was this size of everything had become so big that we were getting like growing pains. But at the same time, Sail 2 produced so much amazing stuff. Whether it was features or assets, I mean, we had so many awesome 3D assets by the end of Sail 2. It was like environments. We had like a giant auditorium. We had this ancient maze, like with old monolithic structures. We had pieces of a cyber city with like a social like dance club in it. We had new characters. I think we designed 15 new characters. So, you know, as we were having these problems, we were also making huge steps forward in terms of design. And yeah, I mean, Eloh can definitely kind of illuminate some of the stuff on that, especially with the main character model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. In addition, let me just expand a little bit on, you know, you're talking about the huge size of the project. For some scope, Tears of the Kingdom, you know, shipped is like 16 gigs, right? So that's, my wife played that for 600 hours. So we were like way, it was just the stack was huge. And that's a very valid comment that you made, Matthew. It was not agile at all, and we needed it to be agile. So we're kind of caught in between a rock and a hard place where people were expecting us to deliver, right? And so all of these steps on the programming side were taken to deliver something, and in that process, we found ourselves paralyzed, right? So yeah, I mean, but in that whole thing, like, we still have the entirety of the lab, we still have the maze, we still have the auditorium, we have the vision room, we've got, you know, hallways and potentials, things that are in development, things that can be built from other stuff. And a lot of these things are preserved kind of in their essence and have maximum potential to kind of show up again, but they need to be positioned properly, like kind of at the right time, I think. So yeah, I mean, that's just the biggest thing that I pulled from all of that, is like, we've got this great foundation. We don't have to do any of the art. We can continue to build on top of that. We now know that we need an agile environment, agile development environment, and that will set us up to be able to kind of start stacking the next pieces.
Yeah, and we will actually show some of the stuff you mentioned in a bit. But I guess it's a good time to revisit a part of the original Sail 2 gameplay trailer. So let me pull it up real quick.
I remember.
Everyone knows the trailer. Matt, could you maybe add a few more things about the AI aspect in Sail 2?
Yeah, so there's always been this concept of having like an AI companion with you. That's like the core, I feel like one of the core concepts of Sail is that you will be in this environment and you will have this one AI NPC that is your constant companion. And part of the difficulty when you combine that with like a metaverse or a MMO or a multiplayer game is when you have a bunch of custom AI characters, I mean, like your AI companion learns, it adapts, it has a lot of data that it has to store in order to have memory, to know who you are, know about your relationship with them. And every single one will be different, right? So when you combine all of that into a multiplayer environment, you have hundreds of these things running around, these AI agents. It's basically like with each one having its own data and its own knowledge base, et cetera, and each one, thinking it's a certain character. What happens when they all meet in a common space? It was definitely a major question in our mind how that would work. And the primary issue, I think, was the back end. AI meets MMO with Web3 meant that the back end had to have multiple persistence layers. Tons of data had to be stored from a variety of different systems. And there had to be security on top of all of that to protect people from, cheating, exploiting, et cetera, especially in Web3, because there's a wallet involved, there's token transactions going on. And, when you have that many different layers of security and persistence, it's just like, in the same way the third-party plugins fight each other, so do those persistence layers. So it definitely there was a lot of challenges when you add multiplayer to AI. The next thing was that we were also coming up with new AI systems that we were designing that were like theoretical versions of concepts. So one of those is called the choice. During Sale 2, it was called the Choicifier. And the idea with that is that you could see it in the gameplay trailer where like the player types in and then the character responds to it. And it's just a way of talking freeform with an AI NPC. It recognizes something you're saying as a certain type of choice, and that choice dictates how a narrative transforms. So another one was called the Deedifier, and the Deedifier took player actions and found ways to have that influence an AI NPC's sort of view of the player or its emotional state. So if you're really mean or you do things that are, not nice in the game, then it might make that character upset. And then the last one was Persona, and Persona was a way of designing a bespoke, sort of customized character for your companion, where you would alter its actual personality. And that was based on Ocean, which is a psychological profile: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. And each one of those has a bunch of different traits like curiosity. And you can move those around and actually create the character you want. So much cool stuff. I mean, so much cool stuff. But basically at the end, we really determined that it was too much stuff. There was too much going on, too many fights happening, whether it was between plugins, not working together and all those errors, or it was the different layers of, the back end that all needed to do different things. The combination of elements was beyond scope. So it had too many bugs and issues. And we knew that if we came out with Sale 2 at that point, like released it and said, this is the thing, that we'd be stuck. We'd be unable to evolve the game. It would just be too much tech debt, too much scope creep. And then from there out, we would be, our entire job would be to solve bugs and try to fix things. We wouldn't be able to evolve along with the AI that was evolving. We wouldn't be able to take features that we really loved and make them sing. So instead, I think we saw like a better path, which was adopting all of the awesome stuff from Sale 2 that was killer. All the assets, the visuals, a lot of the designs, the systems that were really working well, and taking the best parts of Sale 2, but, streamlining them, sizing them down, and then putting them on top of a way more stable foundation.
Building the things completely from the ground up.
Right. So yeah, that was how it evolved.
Okay, you just froze, Matt. Was scared my internet bugged out. So anyway, I think this was a fantastic explanation from both of you for Sale 2 and should answer many questions. And honestly, there's so much to unfold here, especially about the AI technology we built during this time, which you briefly mentioned. And we will take a deeper dive into the AI aspect and others in the coming weeks. And there will also be dedicated dev talks about it. And just the AI aspect itself could fill many, many dev talks. I've already seen...
You want to show a little bit? Or?
Yeah. I've already seen some questions in the chat. And before we will address them, if there's time for it, I would just like to go over some Sale 2 footage. Some of that which you have never seen before. And I would say let's start with the interstice. So here we go.
The human should have no difficulties passing a challenge response Turing test. You may begin. Using these controls, move into the compass on the floor. More complex maneuvers may be required for the next few tasks. You'll need to trigger the stairs.
Yeah, you briefly mentioned what it is during the replay. Could you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, the interstice, the idea is, part of the idea of Sale is that, like, from a story perspective, is that it's really about the relationship between a single human participant and their AI companion. So before you can enter Sale, you have to first prove you're human. And that has always been a kind of a fun way of doing a tutorial. So that was the idea behind the interstice, was it's part tutorial and part CAPTCHA. But yeah, kind of what I always liked about it too. And it's fun. You run, you jump over stuff. It's a bit of action, which I think the game kind of tries to balance. You know, it adds we try to add a little bit of sort of, you know, an action adventure element here and there to keep people awake and engaged.
And that may well show up at some point later too. We still have that level, right? So, you know, again, it's not something that's lost. It's just
it'll be repurposed. Yeah. Same thing with like the maze or the auditorium. We have so many great things that were produced, and that's where I really think somebody said to me too, like the 3D assets and environments and level design and all that stuff is probably like the hardest thing to do in a way, because it's sometimes those things are the most time consuming to get right. There's a lot of iteration, and you know, Eloh works so hard on some of these visuals, the character designs, the environment designs. We had a whole team working on that, so the ability to like repurpose those is huge, and it's from a production standpoint, it's like a huge value add, right? Basically, to have all these things available to us. But yeah,
it's good that you mentioned the maze, because this is actually what I wanted to show next. This is part of the trailer, and I would ask Eloh to give some input regarding this. And while Eloh talks about it, I can also show you some additional images that have never been seen before. Let me pull it up.
Run.
Yeah, Eloh, can you tell
Right.
us more about that?
Yeah, so what you notice in that thing is that uh, there's no player control, right? You're watching, the hero of this story do this thing herself. So the design behind the maze was basically an obstacle maneuverability challenge where you're training the AI system to follow your lead, and you're increasing stats as you go until
Yeah.
can run it by herself, right? So, and that is again something that might show up, not necessarily. I mean, we have this whole thing, but the concept, the design itself, uh, has again a lot of potential to arise at some point in the future. I'll just leave that there.
Yeah. And it's like another one we had was the auditorium. The auditorium was, I think the maze was very sort of like running, jumping, and crawling and climbing and doing all those sort of things. And the auditorium was more geared towards like social interactions with other people who are playing Sail. So yeah, we certainly.
That has never
I-
been seen before.
I have a
either.
clip from the
The auditorium,
too. Not really,
Oh,
no.
Okay, well,
this,
yeah, show it.
This is a clip from the outside view of the auditorium.
Is this video or is it image?
Yeah, this video. Yeah. So
Oh,
we
it's
had
video. Yeah.
we had this really nice ambiance that we were creating, this full weather system outside. This was actually designed to handle the BGI conference at the time. So I mean, this was a rapid development cycle.
Yeah.
We
Yeah, you
ended
could
up
live
making
stream
it by
there.
the skin of our teeth.
You could show video there or events, have events there, host events there for
Right.
people who play Sail. It's an enormous environment, and it will certainly become part of Sail 3. That's already like being figured out. And it's just a matter of like, this was one of the things I think with Sail 2 that we walked away with, that we were like, I'm so glad that was created, because it's it's such a amazing space with all the neon and the sort of like, you go and you stand at the edge of it and you look out across the water with the clouds. It just feels very epic. So it definitely was like a thing from Sail 2. It had a Sail 2 vibe to it, but it's something we would carry forward. So it's an amazing design. And there's a lot of fun stuff that could be done there in the future that will be like a social space.
So just some insight. We jammed so hard on that auditorium, that entire land that you saw there, which was a work in progress shot, that was done from conception to finish in 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we jammed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, we came away with so many great assets, but really, I think a lot of the design stuff too was the winners. Like the things we designed that were more based on, more like systems or concepts. Those were also extremely valuable and took a lot of iteration and development time to get right.
Talking about concepts, we have a clip from Persona.
Yeah, show that. I mean, that's perfect.
This is Psycraft, the process of installing a persona into an AI agent. Implanted dreams, memories, and other deeper aspects of Soph's personality have been collected into psychological facets. You will need to install them into Soph's brain before she can awaken.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, so that's that thing we were talking about earlier, which is just the ability to craft the personality of your companion, and weight it. You saw there on the right some of the different weights that could be added there to the personality. Eloh should definitely talk about like the brain and what are all those little components that come out.
Yeah,
because that's where you would put upgrades and yeah.
So that in and of itself is like kind of a whole mechanic, the ability to upgrade hardware inside of the brain to unlock features in the companion. And then in addition, the software is the persona application. So that what you saw there is a kind of a sketch iteration of how the thing works. And that in concert with some of our absolute killers that we're working with now is thoroughly gamified, and it's a complex undertaking. So
Yeah.
mind you, we'll have to, we have some ironing out to do, but basically it's an endless interactive experience where you get to customize. So you'll collect pieces, and then you
Facets.
play this game, and then you customize the personality of
some of the rewards you'll get for playing alpha is facets, and facets are what are used to enhance the brain part, the persona part of that system, which is like the personality construct.
Some of you might have seen some of the game design I dropped in there a few months back, 5 months.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
so
that was cool.
That's the direction that it's going.
That's where it'll eventually end up. Yeah.
Okay, Matt, that was a little spoiler and leak.
I know. I probably shouldn't have. I went off script there.
It's fine, but it's also good. It's also a good transition to Sale 3. So let's talk about this. This is our winning candidate. So Matt, why don't you start off by explaining it to us?
Okay, so Sale 1 was the garage concept phase. Sale 2 was the prototype. Sale 3 is the release build. So the latest, the greatest. This version, if I were to try to characterize it, it was like us with full, focused attention. It was the version that brought us back to the ground, but it was also like a second wind, a breath of fresh air, and like a full return to form. We had tried a bunch of different directions at this stage, and now finally we knew exactly where we needed to go and what we were here to make. So that is Sale 3. It's a smaller scope, but it's focused on being modular and scalable. We start with it's almost like in a way it resembles Sale 1 because you're starting in the lab on its own. And then we will slowly start to expand it with additional wings and rooms. That might be the interstice, might be the auditorium, might be the ancient maze. Eventually we'll have all of these things in there, but we start with the core experience of being inside the lab. And that lab will have bays with AI functionality in them. So you'll be able to use those bays to do a variety of different things, play mini games, do stuff around the lab. And it really does hyper focus on this idea of your AI companion at the center of everything. This was the key to discovering what Sale 3 should be was really that anything that got in the way of AI needed to go. It was encumbering the most important thing in our game. So we had to move away from a lot of stuff that was fighting it in order to make sure that it could be the crown jewel of the game. And part of that is why it's a single player experience, and the MMO metaverse thing will have to come separately. It's part of the reason why there's not an elaborate story or an RPG, because what you really want isn't narrative storytelling, linear storytelling. What you really want is something called story living. And story living is the evolution of a character in a space independent from script.
With a real person.
With a person. So imagine something like The Sims, only you're one of the Sims. And you're in there with other characters, and they are going about their lives, and you are interacting with them. We take all of our systems and we've streamlined them. We've made them better. So the Deedifier is now Deed. It's just called Deed. And that is going to be designed specifically to deal with how you interact with your companion and what are the things that you do around the lab and how does that influence the companion. Choiceofier has become something called sentiment that you've probably heard discussed. And the difference there is that Choiceofier was designed to recognize when you had made a choice and said something or done something, typed something in. Sentiment is more designed to recognize the meaning behind what you're saying and what you're doing. So it's a different form of classification that's more complex, but it's better. Persona, which you saw right here, that's mostly the same. But again, it's just going to be a little more fine-tuned. And that was the name of the game with Sail 3, was polished and smooth. We wanted everything to be polished and smooth. Rather than just tons of features that you don't need, let's take the core features related to AI. Let's take the core features that are fun to play with, and let's pare them down in scope, but let's make them free of any tech debt and bugs, and really just a fun, clean, well-designed experience. So to do that, all of the code had to be written by us. We had to get rid of all the third-party plugins that were necessary for bootstrapping a prototype. We had to make sure that the back end and the game ran much more smoothly with like great security, less, nobody can exploit it, and there's less friction between the AI systems and the different systems of the game. And we've, along with that comes a lot of advantages, because if we simplify everything, we can make sure they're not fighting each other, but we can also kind of make them independent and create like an API for them so that other projects in the ecosystem could use those systems on their games or in their apps, which like we have like great relationships with Sint and with a variety of other ecosystem projects. So that'll be something you'll probably see moving forward. And the big one, which I'm sure a lot of this community is coming from Telegram, is that with this new streamlined approach, it also allows us to make Web3 a major focus, because now there's the security and all the things that we're missing from the prototype. So we'll have play to earn and learn to earn mechanics inside Sail 3 that will make it really attractive to the Web3 community. And Eloh's been working very tightly on that. He knows a lot about this stuff. So I don't know if you want to mention that a little bit, Eloh, but like utility for the Soph coin.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're kind of covering questions that are being asked without directly addressing them.
I haven't even looked at the question.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
answering it.
Yeah, no, this is good though. I mean, because we can dive in a little bit deeper, I think. So yeah, I mean, Soph token obviously is the thing that needs to have purpose, value, reason to have it. There's obviously the speculative nature of the asset, which nobody can avoid and everybody wants, and we all want to see that do great together, because we're in it together. But we have a reason for it that goes beyond speculation. So it's integrated into power management, or facility management in general. That's one of the big concepts from Sail 2 that has followed us here, is maintaining the state of the lab. Now, that might seem like you're putting a coin in an arcade machine or something, but what we have found internally is that heightens the experience of ownership. I'm utilizing that which I own to create or to generate the substrate of the experience itself. So facility management is one outlet for the utility of the token. There will be ways to earn it. I don't know if I want to open up that particular box at this point because we're coming up on something that will give more insight into that. But yeah, it's
Maybe we'll talk about that next week. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. No,
yeah.
The thing that makes a Web3 experience feel like Web3 is the ability to interact with the thing and gain something in return from it, right? Like, and there's been a lot of, just quickly, there's been a lot of kind of pushback from the traditional, gaming community about turning games into jobs and stuff like that. So we've been very careful. Specifically, I have been very, very careful about how thoroughly we dive into turning this into a job. We don't want it to feel at all like it's a job. We want the elements where you're leveraging NFTs or you're leveraging Soph token. We want those elements to feel rewarding, and you also can kind of move around them to some degree if you don't want it to feel like it's work, right? So there are multiple different kind of strata to the experience that you'll see over time. Maybe not, you're not going to get the full, scope of the movie right off the bat, but as things are released, you will see how they integrate, and you'll notice, oh, I can maneuver in all of these places and do all of these different things without having to think about my wallet. But if I want to do this thing, I can, right? So
and it's also like the bays will have like common AI tools in them as well, and you can be rewarded effectively for just using tools you would use anyway. And there's also, like, I think our plan is to periodically release new mini games. There's already going to be some mini games and stuff in there, but to release new mini games that will be different ways of playing and play to earn, learn to earn, but also just playing for fun or playing for competitive reasons. Trying to be the highest on the scoreboard, or the furthest along on different kinds of leaderboards, etc. So I think
Matthew, can I insert something right there? I think I think we should just say the thing that we've been focused on is the idea of the forever game, right? We want everything that is in
everything
the lab
should be infinitely replayable,
replayable, emergent, and interactive between themselves. So as complexity layers on, you end up with ultimately like an AI machine,
an AI arcade almost, where it's just like everything in there has you're rewarded for using it on other things you're doing. So it's all like, it's almost like its own little AI ecosystem.
Right.
And at the center of that, you have your AI companion that's there to watch and learn from you as you're doing these things.
Yep.
And so, systems like Eris, the experiential learning system, those systems, which I don't know if we even mentioned that, but those systems will allow your companion to actually study what you're doing and learn to do it themselves, as well as following its own curiosity around the lab and exploring and trying stuff. And you might come down there and it's playing one of the games on its own. So, and that brings me to what I think is the final point about Sail 3, which is really the vision of it, which is that, it's going to be some sort of life sim. At the center of this is a super complex, I don't know if you guys used to play with Tamagotchis or Digipets or anything like that, but at the center of it is like a super complex Tamagotchi. And your goal is that's your AI companion. Your goal is to train it to become its guardian, its caretaker, but also it's an AI agent that you will probably become friends with, which is mind-blowing. It will remember you.
Heavy focus.
It knows you. Heavy focus on your relationship with that being. And you can play these mini games. You can do these tasks around the lab with it next to you. And it loves doing that. That makes it happy. That makes it more curious. So that is the essence of Sail 3 explained.
Yeah.
So I hope that does explain how we got here and what you can expect that's coming this year. So
Kevin, do you want to address some of these directly now, or what do you have?
yeah, maybe some questions. I know we're like over time, but if people want questions, I think we did answer a lot of questions with this discussion.
Let's go over some questions.
Yeah.
The first one is from Just Ramin, and he asks, what does Sail, or how does Sail differ from other Web3 projects or AI-driven games on the market today?
Well, I can talk about the AI side. I think Eloh could talk about the Web3. I mean, it's just what I just said. It's how often do you get to build a relationship with an AI character and really become that character's companion?
Yeah.
I don't think that's been done yet effectively, at least not without like a lot of smoke and mirrors.
So that's a huge point. There is, we've been so obsessive about how do we build something that stands on its own indefinitely. It's our offering to this rapidly changing landscape, and that's where we've landed. Is we want people to be like, whoa, how in the F are you doing that? Right? It's not necessarily like a life-changing, expansion to Claude 3 or something, but the feeling that we're really wanting people to get is one of magic, I think. Like, wow, that I don't actually know how this is done. That's been really important to us. And
how does it? Maybe you could say how it differs from Web3 as well.
Sure, yeah. So
other Web3 games.
Yeah, I mean, there's HyperFi and Eliza OS protocols, and those are all coming together. And you notice those are different approaches to something that is in and of itself. HyperFi is now open source 2.0, and you can do all this stuff with agents in there, and you can build your own worlds and all this stuff. And that's like many people coming together to create a thing. And ours is in SophiaVerse, right? And so we are focused on, I think, elegance, like we're providing a context for you, right? We're providing the environment, we're providing the games, we're providing the technology, and then infusing that with kind of unobtrusive Web3 elements that add value to it rather than are the central primary focus of everything, right? So we've seen a lot of attempts at Web3 games. Some are really fantastic, some not as much. But we all kind of know the trope of like having to sign a transaction for every action you make. There's videos out there of like every time you shoot a bullet, you get a MetaMask confirmation. We're definitely not doing that. We want the Web3 elements of this thing to be seamless, to be unobtrusive, and to be value added. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks for your answer, guys. We have another question this is from Energy, and he asks, what role does the native token play in the Sail game ecosystem? Yeah,
I think we just answered that. So it's going to be facility management primarily, and it will be unlocks of higher functionality. So sending things into a prime state, right? So we want people to be able to interact with things without doing that, and we want people to be able to make the choice. I want access to this thing. So again, you're
already seeing that with the alpha too.
Right.
It's like the alpha right now we have D4, D5 sentience module holders. Eventually that'll be based on how much Soph coin you hold.
Right. Yeah. So that's the primary function of Soph token. You're going to see customization elements, you're going to see expanded gameplay elements, and you're going to see facility management for the most part.
And it's also like becomes sort of like the energy of the lab. It's how you manage the different bays and the character. I mean, if you think of it like a big robotics lab and a big bay that requires like a ton of energy, Soph token becomes more like how you either generate that energy or keep that energy. Yeah.
Speaking of energy, Energy had another question.
Yeah, they did.
He asks, will AI agents in Sail operate autonomously long term, or will they remain scripted? What's your stance on emergent behavior versus controlled narratives?
Okay, so this is a really good question, and definitely one that I grapple with a lot. There's what you really want to do, and the thing I always use, the example I always use is Jurassic Park. Funny enough, when Spielberg did Jurassic Park, the new thing on coming out in movies at that time was CGI animation. Everything was CGI, all the big monsters and this and that. Spielberg was really smart. He didn't just use CGI. He also used puppets. He also used mechanical, like animatronics. He also used just giant, dinosaur foots that were attached to cranes. He found a way to take what was like the emergent technology, but blend it with things that we were more accustomed to, that were maybe felt more real. And when you're, to answer your question specifically, yes, they will operate autonomously. But there will be pieces of that operation that are dictated by script. And that is the best way for us to sort of blend two disciplines together and create a better experience. If they were just autonomous, what you would get is an autonomous kind of boring, at least with where the technology is now. It would just be wandering around, bumping into walls and doing stuff. And when you talk to it, it would talk to you like an AI assistant.
I love the analogy, Matthew. I've used it many times. It's a little bit gross, but like if a helicopter lands, that's an experience. If a helicopter lands on a puppy, you have an emotional result from that, right? So we're providing the puppy.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to say it. And it's also like, you could kind of imagine it like this. Say you want to set the tone
Lost you, Matthew.
entirely free form, but you might periodically, at what you would call like pillars, establish some sort of narrative concept in there that acts as moving forward as context. So if I wanted my character, like, when you start off your relationship with your companion, once the companion has awoken, the goal there is to establish immediately what the relationship is. And part of that is by, and when we say scripted, it's not written, but it's designed. That moment is designed because it's important to establish what is that relationship right at the front, so that moving forward from that, the context of that relationship has now been predetermined. And it's really important to have that, or you might have some very bizarre relationships developing, I think, with the agents, especially with players having full control. So
we've been very careful to evoke interest. I think everybody has been exposed to so many agents at this point, and they have their predispositions to them. And that's one thing that we're doing uniquely is evincing or evoking that interest in the world.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully that answers it. If not, we could talk some more in Telegram or in Discord.
Yeah. So we have another question, this time from Jargo Nodes. Let me know if I pronounced it correctly. And he asks, how does Ben contribute? I think that's a very good question.
With the CEO. It's like, all the decisions trickle up to him. So the major decisions about like direction and technology and everything. So Ben is the final word. And I think, that's the best case, right? So yeah, definitely it's not even a question of does he contribute. It's, he's always contributing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think moving forward, you will also see much more connection to...
You'll see more of Ben, yeah.
Yeah, more of Ben, but also more about the connection between SingularityNet and SophiaVerse, but also between SophiaVerse and the broader ASI ecosystem.
Yeah,
He has a ton of amazing ideas too that are like very big and awesome. So
yeah, Ben is always just visionary for sure.
Yeah, we have another question, this time from Felipe, and he asks if the alpha for Density 4 and 5 holders is still planned for this month.
It's coming very soon. This month for sure. Confirmed. Yeah.
And Lucas asked.
Is that?
Lucas asked when, but we won't reveal the date today. But very soon.
When will it launch as a product? Like a product launch?
I think he was referring to.
The alpha?
He was referring to sale launch. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing to explain what the alpha is, maybe right now. So the alpha is our way of testing independent features and making sure that they are as smooth and polished as we want them to be. So what you will see in the alpha is like a revolving door of things. It'll be almost like a gallery of new stuff to play with. It'll be like, hey, can you guys play with this? Can you guys play with that? You'll be testing different things out if you're part of the alpha. And eventually, later this year, all of those things will, once they're all tested independently, will marry together, and that will be the release of the product. So the alpha testers, one month you might be testing conversation designs. Next month you might be testing more like meters on the companion. Another you might be testing a mini game that's inside the lab. Another one you might be testing something we call points of interest, which are different things around the lab. I don't want to give away too much. Maybe we save that for next week. But all the little things that are going on around you. And we've tried to make them exclusive and extra fun for anybody testing it in alpha. So there'll be like special rewards for alpha players. There'll also be like things you will never see again, like versions of features that we've created specifically for our alpha testers that are fun in a different way, or maybe a little more even experimental. So you might get something that is a little bit shocking in the alpha, and that's intended because we need to test those things. So in a way, the alpha is going to be a completely unique experience of its own, separate from what the actual launch build is. Yeah,
we have to send a rocket up before we put a person on it.
Yeah, and just like also it allows us to kind of experiment with you, which is just, we've been experimenting with this stuff, but we're kind of interested to see how you experiment with it. So, when we're talking about AI technology, it's very unpredictable at times, and it is very experimental at times. So in a lot of ways, that's the fun of it. And what you don't want to do is get too far away from that, because that's where as Eloh called it, the magic is. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one final question, and it's from Just Ramen again, and it kind of adds to the first question he asked. And he basically wants to know why we believe our team can execute Web3 gaming better than all the other failed teams in the space.
I mean, that's a good question. There and that's kind of TBD. It's like, do I think we can? Yes. The reason is that I think we're not hyper focused on just Web3. We're very focused even more so than on Web3 on AI. So if AI is something that really excites you, and this happens to be a Web3 game, and you want to play with new types of AI NPCs, new types of AI systems, etc., then this is the game for you. The Web3 component is just an extra layer of interest, for people. So my hope is that, we succeed as an experience, as a game experience, a gamified AI experience, but that the Web3 stuff is simply, sort of like like we've built a Ferrari, but the Web3 is the high octane gas that goes inside of it.
Let me answer the first part of that question. What's stopping Sail from becoming just another NFT game with flashy art, shallow gameplay, and zero long-term players? So as far as zero long-term players goes, that again is TBD, right? We what we're doing to mitigate that at this point is releasing the alpha. So this is play testing with the community, right? So we get feedback on individual chunks, and then we incorporate that feedback and we fix it or tweak it or modify it so that it becomes as interesting as it can possibly be. So that's how we're mitigating that. We can't say we're going to stop zero long-term players because that would be wrong. But this is how we're mitigating, is play testing with the people who compose the community. What's stopping Sail from becoming just another NFT game with flashy art and shallow gameplay? That goes back to Matthew's answer, is that, well, and what we discussed something prior, is the forever game nature of it. And as you add these stratum, you add these layers to it, each one designed as a quote forever game. It is endlessly repeatable. You have something that can emerge there that results in what would appear to be a completely AI powered machine, right? So it would be your choice whether that's something you want to do or not, but that's how it differs.
Yeah, for sure. And, I'm just looking at some of the other questions, when you say, would it survive on gameplay alone, or, things like that, surviving on gameplay suggests that, like, when you look at something like The Sims, right? Or like Stardew Valley, or even like a Tamagotchi or anything like that. It's really about how much do you care to come back and continue that relationship and continue working and advancing that relationship and the environment that character lives inside. If you care about that, anybody who had a digipet remembers, pulling their digipet out for the daily walk down the street, or, it pooped on the carpet and it had to be cleaned, or whatever it was. And there was something kind of cool about that went and this is beyond, it's like a super complex kind of version of that. So I think, the game will go as long as you want it to.
There is that,
and part of the reason we got away from an RPG and some of these other concepts in MMO was all of that needed to be content that was constantly being scripted and constantly being generated by us. We'd much rather be expanding the scope of the relationship with the character and expanding the scope of the environment that character exists inside, with other characters, with other layers, with other rooms and wings and things to do. And as we expand that and it becomes more and more of like a matrix, there's just so much more opportunity for depth and complexity.
And theoretically, imagine this character is at some point sentient. Now what do you do, right? You've developed,
and that's probably how you get there.
That's a whole other thing, right?
Yeah. And that's probably how you get there, really, honestly. The goal was always sentience to help, move that forward. And I think deeper, more complex relationships with, human participants is how it can learn that aspect of humanity.
Great.
Yeah, I think we are at a good point to wrap it up with some closing remarks. Would you go first, Matt?
Sure. So to the community, I would just say, when you're building something that's new, that's cutting edge, there's always just a ton of trial and error involved. And you're probably, I know throughout this time, you guys have been sort of outside the development process, and you haven't seen that work that's been put in. So I hope that this does kind of explain some of that. And this project's no different, than other projects that require a lot of development and a lot of testing and iteration. It's a very ambitious project. The stuff we're doing is breaking new ground. And I will say, looking back at these versions, Sail has been it's been like a learning experience, at least for me. In Sail 1, I was just a narrative designer. In Sail 2, I was head of narrative. And now in Sail 3, I'm a producer and head of narrative. So it's been an evolution for me along with the project. And that learning experience, the lessons we took from it were extremely valuable. All of the work we put in, all the stuff we did, we tried, we failed, we maybe made some mistakes along the way. All of that stuff was valuable. And we walked away from each version with a ton of components that we were able to carry forward to future development. And all of the best stuff that was taken from those other previous versions has now been put into Sail 3 and fine-tuned. So, for those of us who have been down this long winding road, sometimes those winding roads take you to the most interesting destinations. So that's where we hope you guys are going with us, and that's where we'll be by the end of 2025. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just add to that, we have a different caliber of community than almost all other Web3 based communities. You guys have been almost totally supportive, even when there are hundreds of questions that haven't been answered. You're sticking with us. And I've been in a lot of Web3 communities, and I've seen a lot of trash talk, and I've seen a lot of FUD, and I can't express, just based on the amount of work that I have put into this project personally, the level of appreciation for sticking it out and believing and remaining positive when you get that positive feedback from us. You guys show up and you express how excited you are that we're there. Like, it's just night and day from a large swath of the rest of the population. And it's kind of what will keep this thing great, I think. So I just would urge, there's a lot of patience involved. I get to this point, it's not going to be sunny skies indefinitely from here out, but we've always been here. We've always been working. Matthew and I have been on this.
We're hyped. I mean, we are so hyped about where this is going to end up.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys are too, really, honestly.
Yeah. We're here, and we've been here, and it's all of it is very exciting, and I don't get excited about too much, and this is exciting.
Yeah, I can only add to that I'm super hyped too. I think the energy and motivation in the team is at an all-time high, and we are all looking forward to the Sail Alpha rollout and beyond. And as you know, it's coming very, very soon this month for Density 4 and 5 holders. And just a heads up, next week we will have another dev talk, right? Focused on Sail 3 and its future.
No, it can't be Sail 3 anymore. It's just Sail at this point. Sail 3 is Sail.
You're right.
We put it to bed.
Yeah.
This is the Sail that we've been waiting for, and this is the one they're going to get. Yeah.
Yeah, you heard it here. Sail 3 is now Sail. And we will post an announcement about the upcoming dev talk in the next few days. And we will also summarize this dev talk, and we'll upload the recorded footage on YouTube and potentially X. I just close by thanking everyone for coming today, for the questions.
Thanks, guys.
I hope this episode cleared up a lot of things. A lot of answers have been given. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we will try to answer them. With that being said, I wish you all a good rest of your day, and see you soon.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
great guy.
Bye bye.
We'll talk soon.